Welcome to another edition of Athletes Wisdom Podcast. Here where we help you not only build your business and brand using NIL, but also help you understand the aspects of marketing and branding as well, so you can better put yourself in positions to have yourself succeed. Today, I have an amazing guest here. I have Chase Griffin, who is a college football player at UCLA. She's actually the QB, all right? So thank you, Chase, for being on.
Doing well. Thank you for having me.
Hey, thank you for joining, man. So before we really delve into the meat and potatoes, for the people who aren't familiar with who you are and your brand, can you just kind of give a quick synopsis of who you are and kind of how you've gotten to where you are today?
Definitely. I was born in Los Angeles at UCLA Santa Monica Hospital. I grew up from the age of 4 in the great state of Texas, about 20 miles northeast of Austin, in a town called Round Rock. I went to Hutto High School. There, had a lot of good success, was Gatorade and Ford Player of the Year my senior year, and always wanted to go back to UCLA just because it's a great place to go to school, great place to play football, and the history here is really unmatched. And for the past 4 years, I've been a quarterback here at UCLA. I have 2 more years of eligibility, and through my process with NIL, I've been blessed with some really cool opportunities off the field as well.
I like that. So I kind of actually wanted to point to a couple of your accolades that you said earlier. Like you said you're the Gatorade and Ford Texas Player of the Year. Kind of how was that for you, being able to be recognized for playing at such a high level, especially in a state like Texas where football is high talented and high competition?
Part of the grandeur of playing in Texas, especially at a high school like Hutto, was having a community rally around you. And at the time, Hutto is still on the rise, but I think we were really at an inflection point where I had the opportunity to be one of the key faces of that town for those 3 years that I was starting. And so by the time I got to UCLA, I had a lot of camera experience. I had a lot of interviews, radio appearances, that type of stuff. And then I also was used to representing something larger than myself, whether it be my school, my family, etc. And so when NIL came to be, pair that plus my brand experiences with the awards that I had won, and I understood a little bit about how to be talent on camera. I had a lot of practice on that side, and also had a mindset of brand building. And that was there regardless of NIL, just because I wanted to maximize the opportunity at UCLA. And I passed on some other really good schools to come here. And I felt like if I was going to pass on those schools and their networks, that I had to maximize the network here. And so the network building that I was doing during my first 2 years here at UCLA, whether it be in school where I graduated in 2.5 years with my undergrad, or I was in all of the campus clubs representing football, to our Bruin Athletic Council representing UCLA, to the Pac-12 Council. And I had an experience of being able to document and put it on social media in a place where people could really see all the work I was doing. And so I had a good name. I was able to embody values that other brands wanted to align with, and I was good on camera. And over time with NIL, I got better and better. And to this day, I'm still growing on the content side.
I like it. And before I delve into asking you more about NIL, right, I wanted to ask you about something you just said as far as graduating undergrad in 2.5 years. That is, for one, amazing, right? Congratulations on that. But kind of how was that process for you while also being able to, while also being in school, right? Like, while also playing football.
It was going on. Right. It was a lot of class, and I was really busy, especially during that time right before COVID and right when we were able to come home during COVID. And I was really maximizing that time. I think I was taking 16, 18 units in the summer, doing 4 classes every quarter. And I was really going hard. It was all focused on my major. And at the same time, while I was playing, I was also doing an internship with Accelerator for America, which was an extremely good economic development team in Los Angeles, founded by the mayor. And so I really had to cut out all of the fat out of my life, which I'd been doing a good job of, I think, on the way to college and throughout my time at college. But I think it set a really good precedent for how to organize and be disciplined through workload that would eventually lead to my NIL success.
So what is your major?
My major was public affairs. So it was mainly focused on policy making, governance, social welfare, social justice. And eventually I want to get into public service. So I feel like it gave me a very good institutional ground floor on the workings of the government and policy. And my experience with Accelerator for America, where I was a communications intern, that was at the time where we raised, I think, $40 billion for economic development in Los Angeles. And I was part of some really cool projects. And a lot of those folks who were on the team that I work with are going to end up being, party heads, people who are getting people elected, and God willing, they're working with me someday.
Nice. That's dope. So I know that since NIL has come into fruition, right, and it's always changing and things of that nature, but it's gotten a bit more on the political side. Now, given your major and given what you want to do, have you ever thought about interjecting those crossroads between the two a bit more and kind of helping athletes understand that side so they're able to take advantage of it through the NIL space?
I think for now I'm focused more on the in-sport side and sort of being a proof of concept and giving experiential and anecdotal knowledge. I have, best plan and practices that I'll be developing out this summer in sort of a masterclass curriculum form. And I think I do have good experiential wisdom to share with athletes who are coming up. I think at the same time, I have to tip my hat to folks like Sedona Prince and Ramogi Huma, who are fighting the good fight as far as this impending revenue share and making sure that that's implemented in the right way, in a way that protects athletes and protects the virtues of college sports. So I think from the way that I can add value now, I'm focusing on it. As far as the political side, there's a lot of good work being done, especially on the judicial, but that hasn't been my focus just yet.
Gotcha. So where do you see yourself 5 years from now?
I think there's a lot of things. I pray to God often about having wisdom on which roads to take. I think if everything went exactly how I wanted it, over the next 2 years of eligibility, I just need one of them to go right and get a good look at the NFL. And that's always been a dream of mine. I still work out every day, with a Rose Bowl in mind, with the national championship in mind, and I'm a quarterback at heart. So that's still priority number one as far as my operations here at UCLA. In addition to that, I joined on as a consultant, athlete, creator, and residence at Range Media, and there helping them build out our NIL strategy and adding my expertise and network there to give us the best foot forward as a firm. And then in addition to that, at Range, I'm learning the talent and production space of more TV film. So acting, voiceovers, and producing film and TV, which are passions of mine. I love movies. I love TV. As a content creator, it's always been a dream of mine of taking it from social media and commercial-based and branded-based content over to more long-form Hollywood traditional content. And then in addition to all of that, I'm very interested in music production. I produce, I'm good friends with the folks over there at Internet Money. So that network is extensive, and there's some really talented guys over there who are doing great work. And then what ties really all of it together is my love of investing. In the grand scheme of things, I want to build generational wealth and be able to manage it in ways that provide for my family and those that I care about. And then in addition to that, public service and philanthropy. And as long as I do all of that while maintaining my faith, I'll consider it a win. On the investment side, I'm learning how to institutionally invest with the UC Investment Office. The University of California Office of the President is a $160 billion fund. The CIO there has taken me under his wing, and his goal for me is to be an institutional investor within the decade. So there's a lot going on, but I think it all works together. And as long as I continue my focus, continue my discipline, way leads on the way. I think if I stride in one of those categories, they help uplift the other ones. And I'm looking forward to, you asked about my 5-year plan is to maximize all the opportunities in all of those sectors. And I think I'll be happy where I'm at 5 years from now, as long as I stay true to myself.
I like that, man. You said a lot within that, and I'm going to touch on I want to ask a few points on a couple with starters, right? I know you said that you have 2 years of eligibility left at UCLA, correct?
Yep.
So within that, and I actually know a few players that are in some of the USFL and XFL leagues. Let's just say hypothetically that when it comes to after your 2 years of eligibility and you're moving on to the next step, would you be willing to go to a USFL or XFL team if that were to help better your chances into getting into the NFL? Or let's just say, draft comes and, it doesn't work out the way you want to. Will you just end up moving to the next chapter of your life in regards to a lot of the philanthropy and the financial literacy aspect of what you want to do?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think those are things that I would have to consider in the moment. Situations change all the time. I have a lot of respect for those leagues. For the past year or so, I've been watching a lot of the USFL games, and they're fun to watch. There's a lot of good players. It's really talented. And I had a couple teammates who are actually trying out for XFL teams right now. So, yeah, I'm rooting them on as well. I think those are fine leagues. Obviously, the goal for me is NFL when it comes to football, but I think I would be foolish to say at this point that it's a hard no to either of those leagues because it's fine football.
Exactly. Okay, I like that. I want to pivot a bit more into some of the NIL things that you've done and some of the partners that you've been able to partner. I know you said that you're at Range Media, correct?
Yes.
Now, within there, what is your ultimate goal of working with them? Like, I know that you're working with them, but do you also have an agent with them that helps you obtain NIL deals? Do you just work with them outside of that, or is it a mix?
So I'm self-represented, but the cool part about Range is as soon as you join the Range family, you have access to a suite of services and networks. In the same way I'm adding my extensive NIL network, they have extensive networks in music, in production, in entertainment, writing, in talent, and acting. And it's a cool mixture of ideas. I think as we progress in the talent space, the lines between more traditional talent and social media influencer talent are sort of being blurred. So it's a cool melting pot of ideas where experiences that I've had in NIL are helpful for maybe a production on sports or helpful for a production on the marketing and media side. And so there, I think it's really a culmination of ideas and experiences, and my expertise with NIL is valuable to them. Is on things that I'm trying to get into is valuable to me. So it's a cool trade-off.
I like that. And then one thing that I've been able to learn just kind of being an entrepreneur, right, is social media makes entrepreneurship look very glitzy and glamoury, right? But when you really get into it, like, you end up realizing you got to do a lot of stuff on your own. You don't have a lot of these tools and resources that you said you were able to have, right? So I find it amazing that not only were you able to stay self-represented, but now when you work for them, you're still able to utilize a lot of the tools that they have available to kind of benefit and, kind of put you a leg up on some of the other competition out there. I do want to kind of point out, and I think it's amazing how multifaceted you are, right? Because I feel like sometimes, depending on how long somebody's been playing a sport, right, we always hear of these child proteges that have kind of been playing since they were like a little kid, and that's all they know, right? So when it comes to you being extremely multifaceted, how has that kind of helped you in regards to being on the field playing, but just kind of keeping you level-headed and balanced to kind of share your time with everything? Mm-hmm.
I think that all really comes from my faith. When I put my faith first, it puts everything outside of that into perspective. Like, my faith way up here, that's top of mind always, and then my family and those I care about are under that. And then as far as everything I'm doing operationally, obviously I have priorities, but I take it all with a grain of salt. Like I said earlier, my mission is to build generational wealth early and go into public service and philanthropy and do all of that while maintaining my faith. However, the means of getting there, of course I have ideas in my mind or things that I want to happen. Whatever means of getting there, as long as I'm staying true to myself, I believe that I have the talent and the ability to work on my skill set to excel in all the avenues that will get me there. And so I've never looked at myself as only a football player or only someone that does content or only a music producer or only someone in the investment space, because what I'm doing in one space helps me in the other and vice versa. And so I think anyone who's out there limiting themselves is thinking sort of in a dichotomy of terms that I think athletes are starting to grow out of. And some of the athletes who've, literally a century ago come through UCLA were some of the earliest ones to push back on this and utilize their ability to play their sport, their mental fortitude, their bravery and courage to transcend what an athlete can be. And they've changed the world for the better because of it. And I think as more and more athletes adopt this level of thinking and self-control and self-belief, and if you have those, I think that the scope on what you can accomplish is a lot wider than what others or even yourself may expect of you.
I like that. So I want to pivot a little bit to where you were this most recent weekend, right? The NIL Summit. And unfortunately, I didn't have the opportunity to go. It's probably the summit I was looking forward to the most, but it looked amazing. I just kind of wanted to ask your experience of that, because I know you went to the one last year as well, which was the inaugural one. You had your jersey in there and your helmet kind of put in there, which I think was amazing. So kind of how was the experience going to the NIL Summit, and how did this year differ from the previous year?
I think both years were very similar. Both years were really smooth in how they ran. Most importantly, the athletes really enjoyed it. I think this year might have had more brand activations, so that was an improvement. But the best part out of this was the culmination of ideas. And last year it was a lot of brands sharing ideas, sharing the concepts of return on investment and things like that to athletes, that way they could be better as a talent pool in the NIL space. This year, athletes had things to share with brands, where you saw at some brand activations, they were getting athlete input. And I think this is where you see a step of growth in that NIL space. Athletes are able to become more savvy in the space as creators, and then relay back to companies what they need to deliver better return on investment for these brands. And so it's a cool culmination of ideas and brain trust. And it's a one-of-a-kind event right now, I think, not only for NIL, but for college athletes.
I like that. And you were named NIL Athlete of the Year both years, correct? Male Athlete of the Year.
So this year was actually John Seaton. He's from Elon. He plays defensive lineman. Congratulations to John. He's an excellent creator.
How was it? But you were able to win last year, though, correct?
Yes.
Okay. How was that experience, being able to not only be at the inaugural NIL Summit, but to win Male Athlete?
It was an honor. It was really cool to have that type of validation for the work that I've been doing. And I think it helped solidify the expertise and value that I had been adding to brands and athletes alike over the course of NIL. And I think even since last year, I've improved greatly on the content creation side, but also in the expertise in game I've been able to give to both athletes and brands.
I like that. So what are some of the NIL partnerships that you've been able to, accrue since NIL has started? And I know one of the major ones that we were talking about off camera, I do kind of want to shine a little light on that as well, because that is a major brand.
Appreciate it. Thank you. So my first deal was with Degree, and there was the Breaking Limits campaign. I think it generated over 1 billion hits amongst myself and the other team members. So it showed me off bat that I could get number one brands, and that what I was doing could generate return on investment. And that was huge confidence booster as far as the space, just because both athletes and brands didn't know a lot going into NIL. And that set a precedent for me that I think I've followed to this day. Another number one brand, and probably my longest running partnership thus far, has been with JP Chase. And there I've been utilizing my expertise and ability to tell my story, not only on the financial literacy side, which I'm very proud of, but also just being a good ambassador for the company. I think when I work with any company, especially as of late, I look for companies that I wouldn't mind being a lifetime ambassador for. And JP Chase definitely is a brand where I would love to be a lifetime spokesperson with them.
What's the difference between being an ambassador for a brand and actually doing like an actual partnership with the brand? Because I see ambassador, and then I see how some other athletes are like partners and things like that. So kind of explain the difference in that aspect.
I think the terminologies are pretty much up to the athlete and or more brand. For me, I try to steer clear, especially with larger brands, of one-off deals where all right, they send me what they want the content to be about. I do the content, send it to them, boom, never talk again. They send me the check. I work with brands that I genuinely am either a consumer of or I care about their mission. And it's best when it's both. Part of what makes the JP Morgan Chase deal so special is, we share the same name, but I'm actually a customer. Like I use my business account, which I utilize for my LLC, in NIL is a Chase business account. And so I'm not only someone who aligns with them morally and believes in their financial equity mission, but is also an everyday customer.
Nice. And one of the things I love to highlight on this podcast is athletes creating their own business within the NIL space. And that was actually going to be my next question, but you kind of led right into it. What business do you have, and how has NIL helped your business, and in what ways has it helped it?
So the business manifestation of the services that I provide to my clients is called Believe Brand. When I look at my personal values, I consider myself a believer, a winner, and a provider. And when I'm looking at brands, I look for other brands that mimic those same values. And so Believe Brand functions as my LLC. It's great as far as for business purposes, for payment purposes, and tax purposes. And I would implore anyone who's looking to get into the NIL space, especially folks who are doing multiple cash deals where they're going to end up having to pay taxable money. I think an LLC would be a good route. It not only protects you in the business sense, but it expedites and makes you easier to work with for the companies and brands that are paying you, and definitely seek out expertise when you're creating those.
Like that. So have all of your NIL deals essentially been under the Believe brand?
The vast majority, yes.
And how many NIL deals have you had since you first started?
I've probably done circa 30, 30 activation, yeah.
Nice. Now, I know you said you try to stay away from one-off deals, but how many one-off deals have you partaked in, and how many deals in general are still currently going on?
I probably have 4 or 5 in perpetuity, and then I'm looking to add a couple more actually within the next couple weeks. So I'm very excited about that. I'd say around 40% of them have been deals where I've only done 1 or 2 posts for them. But especially for larger brands, I've tried to do multiple campaigns.
You said you represent yourself, right? That you don't have an agent. How does that journey and that process look for you when you're looking for an NIL partnership, right? Like compared from the very first deal that you got compared to how you do it now, because I'm sure it's kind of changed over time as you've learned.
Part of the reason why I'm able to develop good experiential knowledge on NIL is I've seen all facets of it. So when the deal first approaches me, I'm the one either getting the email or looking on the marketplace and seeing that deal offered to me. And I can read through it. I can respond back either accepting it, declining it, or negotiating terms. If we need to talk further, I'll sit on a Zoom. And I think it also simplifies things for the company that I'm working with, because they're talking exactly to who's going to be producing the content, who's going to be in the content, and who's going to be directing the content. And so even before we shoot, I have a good sense on what they want from this deal, and I can convey what I want from this partnership. And there's just a genuine working relationship built through the course of whatever campaign I'm doing. And then after that, if it's from a marketplace, I'll contact the marketplace and say, yes, I accept this deal. Please send more details. Or if it's offered to me directly, I'll get to pre-production, which is looking at the directive and deliverables they sent me and coming up with my own similar one, improving it in ways that I see fit, and then creating a shot list and sending that back to the brand or company to approve. That way we don't waste time filming anything that's going to end up getting scrapped in post-production. And then once I get the shot list approved, I hire a videographer, find a venue. If the venue needs to be booked, get on that. and then show up. And as soon as I'm on set, then I go from producer to director in town. And then we shoot. I give my videographer a little bit of time to edit and then send back the finished content to the brand. If they need final post-production edits, then we'll get those edited. If not, then submit it. And I like to streamline and simplify the process while at the same time having constant check-ins. That way the brand knows that what they want out of the deal is top priority for me.
So one thing I want to highlight for the audience is through you explaining that, one thing I was able to pick up is that you have a team even behind, like aside from who you're partnering with, you have a team on your end that's helping you throughout this, right? And oftentimes I feel like everybody is always trying to do things by themselves for a number of reasons. Just from what I've learned also in businesses, a team is always going to help you do things faster, more efficiently, and essentially at a higher level. So I just kind of wanted to point that out. A question I did have is, I always hear athletes talking about, marketplace this and marketplace that. Which marketplace or places do you use, and which one has been most beneficial to you throughout this journey?
I think all the markets are great. Open Doors has probably been the marketplace that I've done as far as marketplace deals the most with in revenue, but I've also done deals with Icon Source, done deals with Mogul, and I'm really good friends with the folks over at Influential and the Turk brothers. So overall, I think marketplaces are great because they are for the student athletes, and they create a sense of transparency between what the brand wants and what the athletes want. And because of their experience, they're able to translate it in ways that maybe less experienced athletes can understand easily. And especially early in my NIL career, they were a huge support for me, and I'm really grateful. I think I've evolved to a point now where marketplace deals are excellent, but because of myself being a market leader at this point, deals are offered directly towards me. And it's great to learn both ways and see what it looks like with a marketplace, what it looks like without. But to be able to do deals start to finish and really complete projects, as a quarterback, being a taskmaster is extremely important. And I've been able to develop a system and a routine. That way it's always high level content that brands expect when working with me.
And speaking of the high level content aspect, I know I said earlier that it seems as if you have a team. How is your content process in general, right? Because everybody obviously makes content differently, and each athlete can still make content differently. And then each company wants different types of content made. So how is the content journey for you? What kind of team do you have behind you? I know you said you're a videographer, but kind of explain that content for me as well.
I think the content just depends on the person as far as style. For some folks, they really thrive and companies get return on investment if they film things on their phone and just do day in the lives and that type of stuff. For me, I really like movies. I like TV. I like productions, and even if the budget is lean as far as for shooting something, I want it to look like a spectacle. And so I tend to reach out and try to keep videographers that are good at capturing that. And so when I go into a deal and I get the deliverables from the brand, they're accustomed to me sending back a certain type of product. And I take pride. I'm a competitor, so every single deal that I do, I want it to look aesthetically, sound better, sound clearer than every single other piece of content that's submitted in that campaign. And so I'll create the shot list. If it needs scoring, either I'll ask my videographer to get a certain type of sound, or I'll produce something, or I will do the voiceover myself. And by doing all of this, it keeps it consistent. I do have a team, but it's really my pops. And then on one of the deals with JP Morgan Chase, I got the input from my brother and sister. They were excellent, and I had my whole family on camera for that deal. So I really try to keep my circle close, keep it to people who are trusted, people who know what I'm about. And then especially on certain deals, I have one or two, especially one video videographer in mind for my go-to for that type of visual.
So when it comes down to some of the compensation you get from these brands, right? I've heard compensation packages being in the form of product. I've heard it being in the form of just simple exposure for that particular athlete because maybe the brand is that big and they can give them the right amount of exposure. I've heard compensation in actual cash monetary form, right? So when you're partnering with a brand, what kind of compensation are you looking for? And just with the previous NIL partnerships you've had, what are some of the compensation packages that they've given you?
A majority of the deals that I think most folks do probably on a daily basis are product deals, or if they're cash deals, they're around $1,000. At this point in my NIL career, I've never done product deals. It's never really been something of mine that I felt created the value that I could deliver on return on investment. And that's just personal to me. I think that they're great opportunities for others to practice content creation and also get products that they would buy on a daily basis regardless. For me, at this point in time, with larger brands, I'm focusing on those types of deals and building out long-term partnerships and ambassadorships. With smaller brands, I'm offering advice and consultation to grow their companies in exchange for equity deals. And so I'm sort of at a point now where with larger brands, I'm continuing my cash deals, which has sort of been my bread and butter. And then with smaller companies that I really believe in, I'm doing equity deals by consulting and also doing ambassadorship for them.
I like that. So when it comes to creating a deal, right, obviously a brand is coming to you or you're reaching out to a brand because you feel as if you can be of value to them and vice versa. But for you personally, what does being of value and what does being of value look like to you in regards to giving it to a brand? Like, what value do you have for them? Like, how can you essentially help them improve their brand? And how can other college athletes kind of figure out their own value for some of these brands as well?
What I do is attractive for brands. You know, on the conventional side, I create good looking content that gets clicks and engagement on Instagram, Twitter, that type of stuff, especially LinkedIn, where a lot of my audience are power players and people who are presidents in the C-suite, that type of demographic. And then I also give peace of mind, where brands that want to align themselves with someone who's young, someone who can be a proof of concept for the services that they provide, I can embody that and can do it in a way where the brand doesn't have to worry about somebody giving them ever negative press. In fact, vast majority, if not all of my brand deals has created a lot of good earned PR and a lot of good PR and publicity for the brands I've worked with. And in addition to that, I'm known to give a portion of all of my deals to some sort of philanthropic effort. So if brands want to contribute to that side of what I'm doing, a deal is a way that not only creates return on investment for them, but generates good PR for them too, and helps them achieve their goals of social welfare and social impact.
And I want to touch on personal branding for a moment, right? Because what you just said now was, I feel as if extremely powerful, and I just kind of want to shed a bit more light on there. And you've said it numerous times, and I know a lot of it comes down to your faith, correct? As far as the companies that you partner with and a lot of the philanthropic work that you do. So when it comes down to some of the communities and things that you give back to, how do you determine which fund or which organization you'll kind of give some of that money to? Because, and I know it deals with a lot of your faith, but there are also a lot of different organizations that might still fall within, you know, your brand and your image. And so how do you kind of determine which one gets what at what time?
For those, I look for organizations that their work fits into areas of help and areas of need that I personally feel like I want to be able to assist in. And then I look at the top of that list and say, who is best suited to take whatever I can give and maximize that impact for those communities. Food insecurity is something that I wanted to utilize my name, image, and likeness to help address. And so partnering with the LA Regional Food Bank, who is the area leader in helping out with folks who suffer from food insecurity, was paramount to me. The same with Be the Match, same with organizations that are excellent as far as educating and upbringing the youth, and same with partnerships like with JP Morgan Chase, where I've been blessed to assist them in their commitment towards social and financial equity. And opportunities like that are amazing to have in college, because they not only encourage me to keep on going, but they give me a really good foundation for my ultimate life goal, which is to go into public service and philanthropy.
So is there any piece of advice, like if there's one thing that a college athlete can take from what we're talking about today, what's one piece of advice that you can give them?
Stay true to yourself in the space, and don't go chasing deals that may be from companies that you don't really align with. And it's really easy to see other people doing certain things and want to copycat that. If they are things that are authentic to you, then absolutely implement those into your life. But the companies that you're supposed to work with and the companies that you want to work with, when they look at your page, they have to authentically see you being yourself. And if there's alignment between what you are as yourself and what your followers expect from you in those brands, then I think those are the best formulated, brand partnerships. And then additionally, on the collective side, this is less towards athletes, but more towards schools. In that entire world, it's important to have guardrails in place to protect athletes and make sure that they're not taken advantage of in this space. This not only protects athletes, but it protects the good standing of the school, especially in recruiting.
One final question before we close out, something on what you just said now as far as the schools, right? I know that you probably have departments that help with NIL in some kind of way because you are at a larger school. So does UCLA have something for the athletes in regards to them understanding and navigating NIL more? Let's just say for the students who don't have that, right? What's a piece of advice you can give them on understanding and maneuvering through NIL without that guide or without those necessary tools that might be able to help them along?
Here at UCLA, we have students from the Griffin law school here who help consult on the contractual side. So if you have a contract that you don't really understand, or you want to make sure that, say there's an exclusivity clause that has multiple conditions and you want to understand which ones apply to your situation, we'd be able to bring that to our peer-to-peer. I think athletes at every single school, before you sign anything, get it looked at. Their chances are, especially at Division I's, there is some type of pro bono service. There is some sort of compliance officer. If you're able to seek that, or if you have a family member who's a lawyer, or if there's lawyers out there who will give free advice because they're passionate on the good fight for NIL and eventually revenue share, just try to do as much research as you can before you get into a contract that you don't completely understand. And if the contract is really hard to understand, chances are you should definitely get a second look, because the majority of deals that I've done in the NIL space have been very straightforward.
Well, I appreciate you so much, Chase, for being on and giving the insights. For the people who aren't familiar with you, can you just kind of let them know where to find you at, like if they had any questions or wanted to reach out to you?
Yeah, you can find me on ChaseQB11. That's my username for, I think, Twitter and Instagram. And then for LinkedIn, Chase Griffin.
Well, thank you so much. And look, if you haven't already, go ahead and make sure that you follow him. Turn all your post notifications on, because he does honestly drop a lot of good and valuable content, especially if you're a college athlete. And go ahead and like and subscribe this video as well. And if you have any comments, go ahead and drop them below the video and let us know what you want to see next. We'll see you next time. Let's go.